Look, thank y'all so much for being here. This has been one of those moments that we'll look back on in history and have to say there was a pivotal turn in the life of Fort Worth. Many of you all know and known for many years, and you know we've been talking about racism against African Americans for years. But we are now at a point where we're not going to talk about it anymore. We're going to support our young people who are doing more than talking, and we're going to have a message for Mayor Price and the city folk, including Chief Krause. The photo op with the knee was fine for some folk, but for those who know about the corruption within the Fort Worth Police Department are not going to take that as a sign of surrender. A sign for surrender for us is accepting the demands of the young people with United Fort Worth, accepting the demands from Black Lives Matter, and also Unite My Justice, who have put themselves on the front lines of this crisis. And we want the city to know, no more pepper spray, no more rubber bullets, and no more curfews. That's not how you solve this problem. You solve it by sitting down with our babies, letting them express their pains, and then coming up with reasonable solutions that they agree to, not what you manipulate them to. And the preachers with the Faith and Community Leaders United are here to tell Black Lives Matter, we are with you. Lead us to the promised land. So now we're going to hear from representatives from the Black Lives Matter. They have something to say, and we want you to capture it all. That's why we invite you here. And we thank you for being here, but we need you to hear our babies.
Since we're in front of the church, I think it's fitting that I first remind you of the words of Jesus Christ, who said, "Do not assume that I come to bring peace. I come with the sword." And that's the energy that I have for all of those who criticize us disrupting the peace. A couple of days ago, Star Telegram asked, did I plan on leaving at curfew? I asked back, did America plan on delivering justice by then? Because if you want me to leave at a curfew, then you've got a lot of work to do before 8 p.m. And that's my message to Betsy Price. That's my message to Chief Krause. If you want us to leave at curfew, if you want us to stop shutting down the businesses in Fort Worth, if you want us to stop marching, you want us to stop protesting, then you've got a lot of work to do. And the reality is we're tired, because we know all too well that there has not been justice. And where there is no justice, there is no peace. Malcolm X says that you cannot separate peace from freedom, because one cannot be at peace unless they are free. And we're talking about peace. The only people, watch how this happens, how many times peace is directed at protesters. Look at how many times rioting and looting is directed at protesters. But never once did you call what happened on that West 7th Bridge when the police department of Fort Worth tear gassed us, shot rubber bullets. Never once did anybody call that a riot. Never once did you call what happened to a Tatiana Jefferson a riot. Yeah. Never once did you call that violent. And so I'm supposed to believe that these are the people that are here to protect and serve. And so what do I have to say to Betsy Price? I have to say, we're tired of coming to your meetings. You come to ours. We're tired of listening to what you have to say. You listen to what we have to say. And if you don't listen to what we have to say, if you don't bring us justice, then we'll shut it down. And we'll shut it down today, we'll shut it down tomorrow, we'll shut it down every day until justice comes. Why? Because this is not just about George Floyd. This is about a country that since its inception was founded on rape, founded on murder, founded on looting, founded on violence, founded on war. That is what this country stood for. And so all of us that are here, that are gathered, are saying that there is no reform for a country founded by stealing a people from their own homeland. then raping and murdering another people before stealing their land, then bringing us as stolen property to work for stolen labor. There is no reform for that. There is no reform for a Fort Worth Police Department, for a policing system in America that was founded out of slave patrols. You don't reform that. You destroy it and you build something better. You build something new. You build something just. You bring something humane. That's what you do. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s last sermon before he was murdered was entitled, "Why America Will Go to Hell." And look around this nation and see it burn. Look at it burning. And I don't have anything to say to that other than out of the ashes we will rise. Out of the ashes, we'll create a better nation. Out of the ashes, we'll create something that brings us justice and liberty for all. Because Martin Luther King said, all we asking is that you be true to what you said on paper. We're not asking for nothing much. You want us to go home, bring us justice. You want us to stop protesting, bring us justice. Don't bring us riot gear. Don't bring us tear gas. Don't bring SRT. Don't bring police officers. Don't bring your knees. Bring us justice. And then this is what I have to say to the Fort Worth Police Department, who had the nerve to take a knee as if it was some way of being in solidarity with us. As if it was not a police officer kneeling that brought us here in the first place. As if it was not. What kind of mockery for a police department to kneel and tell us that that's solidarity. Tell us that that's working with us. No, solidarity is resigning. Solidarity, we don't need, understand that the policing system in America, the prison industrial complex, is neo-slavery. And so the answer to slavery is not to get better slave masters. It's to get rid of the system that produces slave masters in the first place. And so we're getting rid of the system that produces policing in America that will never value our lives. And until we get it, we'll burn this city down.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
What I am requesting, matter of fact, this isn't even a request. Let me change my wording. What we are demanding, and what I demand, is that we abolish our law enforcement. Because I don't think that we can reform and rebuild. Because after all of these years, there has been no reform. There has been no policy changes. There has been no attempts. Instead, you guys do little small things to try to satisfy us temporarily. Small justice, small gestures, like my brother said, as far as kneeling, that means absolutely nothing to any of us. It means absolutely nothing. What I would have preferred to see is a badge drop. A weapon turned in, resignation paperwork submitted. There's other employment because at the end of the day, it is just a job. And also what I demand is that you, Chief Krause, the Chief of Police, Betsy Price, organizers of the law enforcement, your officers need to be retrained. Your officers need sensitivity training, ethics training at a quarterly, semi-annually, and even weekly rotation. They need to learn how to approach my people, our people. They need to learn that these neighborhoods that you see behind us are not their hunting grounds, where they ride around and they look for people that fit the description of what society and you have deemed criminals. When some of us are fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, students, soldiers, veterans, priests, ministers, anything you can think of, just like you behind those cameras, here doing your job. Who wants someone patrolling their neighborhood on the hunt? Because I can tell you what they're not doing. They are not patrolling our streets to help. They are not stopping by and stopping fights. They are not stopping the violence that they arrest. They are not going to the gas stations, the corner stores. They're not checking our block. They're not doing courtesy patrols to keep the crime down. They wait for the crime, then they attack. Let's put a policy in where you can try to prevent the crime. What about the preventive measures? What about the reconnaissance of our neighborhood to make sure things are good? Because guess what? We are not animals, and we will no longer, from the second after I leave this podium, we will not be treated like animals anymore. We will not be hunted. Pulling your trigger In your homeland, we are not at war with the human race, but that is what it seems like, because there are casualties and there are deaths, and it is not a war zone or a battlefield. This is where we live. But the police force have turned our neighborhoods into a war zone, into a battlefield. Am I right or am I wrong?
You're right, sis. You're right, sis.
Because there's casualties, there's murders, not deaths, murder. M-U-R-D-E-R, murder. If it's not an active shooter, a hostage situation, or something that requires that type of force, why are we using it?
Yes, that's it.
Where is the training to ensure, I don't mean just the police academy, I mean the follow-up training. Continuing it, making sure that they are proficient in the use of their weapons, making sure they know how to handle non-hostile situations, making sure they know how to restrain my people, making sure they know how to handle the human life. Because pulling that trigger is too easy, and it's the coward route. And it shows you that you are even not sufficient to serve in that position. So I will demand, and if it takes my last breath, I will show up at the steps, I will show up everywhere that I am needed until they sit down and I see a policy and it is given to the public so that we can see it. The rules of engagement and your operating procedures have to change. Because at the end of the day, this is the law enforcement versus the people. Because the law enforcement are the ones behind the gun and pulling the trigger. They are the ones causing the murders. They are the reasons we are having funerals. They are the reason we are here right now. We are here because someone was murdered. That's why we are here. And we are going to put a stop to that. So all of you officers, anyone watching, when you're doing your job and when you're in my neighborhoods, our neighborhoods, don't reach for that gun. That is for necessary and when it's needed. But none of us are out here doing anything that even should make you even want to think about pulling the trigger. And the last time I checked on that belt, there's pepper spray, handcuffs, tasers, and other non-lethal methods that I know you were trained of. But you choose, because for some reason we've been given a perspective that we're allowed to be hunted and killed, so they choose as their first option to kill. And guess what? No more. No more. You will be retrained if I have to do it myself. If I have to do ride-alongs to ensure that when you're riding through my neighborhood that your police checks go right, I will do that. I will ride with you to make sure. But guess what? It stops today.
Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. All power to the people. So I'm going to go over some of our demands. These are a list of demands we've kind of put together and what we're kind of expecting from the Fort Worth Police Department. What we are expecting from the Fort Worth Police Department, from Betsy Price, from everybody. Our first demand is going to be defunding the Fort Worth Police Department. We demand that the Fort Worth ISD immediately remove all Fort Worth PD police officers from our schools. Minneapolis just did that. We demand that the Fort Worth ISD immediately seize all contracts with the Fort Worth Police Department. It's very hard for a police department to protect kids when you're out here killing people. We demand the creation of a community oversight board, not appointed by the city, with subpoena power. We demand the disarmament of police, especially in response to nonviolent offenses. Our Tatiana Jefferson was murdered, and that was a non-emergency call that ended her life. We demand a substantial portion of the Fort Worth PD budget to be allocated to creating mental health response teams, youth homelessness programs, and a young people's task force on race relations. We demand the demilitarization of the Fort Worth PD. The rogue SRT team should no longer have access to military gear. I believe I've reached the end of our demands for now. Thank you guys for coming out here and listening to us.
You know, what they didn't expect was Colin Kaepernick taking a knee woke up white America. George Floyd taking a knee woke up black America. And black America is saying we're tired of all this systemic racism that you guys have been giving us for far too long. We're not taking it. And this is bigger than George Floyd. We got issues right here in Fort Worth, Texas. 55% of interaction with police was black America. And y'all expect us to trust y'all. Betsy Price stand up every second she get and say, we got the trust of the people. You don't have the trust of the people because we are the people. We don't trust you. We have demands that need to be met. We want a civilian review board with subpoena power to allow, to ensure that you guys can no longer hide evidence from us. Just like they did at Tatiana Jefferson. They hid the evidence and then they come back and protect the officer that quit. How can the POA support the individual that quit? Jacqueline Craig, son got choked. And what did Fort Worth say? You can't get choked from behind. You can get choked, period. We are tired, and no longer will we allow Betsy Price, Ed Krause, Fort Worth Police Officers Association, or any other Trump administration to come tell us what we're gonna do. They implemented a curfew that violated our constitutional rights. You can't tell us to get in the house at 8 o'clock.
That's it, Doc.
We have a right to protest. We have a right for free speech. But guess what? You go on 7th Street, you see 20, 50, 70 cars up and down there, but if you come on the south side, the police is rounding them up saying, get off these streets.
Yeah, that's it. Cut it out.
So what we've been getting for the past 100 years here in Fort Worth is what they call colored people justice.
Yes, sir.
And we won't take that no more. We're not taking the colored people justice anymore. And to ensure that, and Betsy Price, Ed Krause, and all you others, if you know that you're willing to make the change, put in the consent decree. Put it on paper. Put it on paper so we can hold you accountable down in the courthouse. Yesterday we stood and watched those judges we watched the same judges that sentenced our people. We watched them leave and go home. And we stood right there in front of them proudly. We proclaimed that Black Lives Matter.
Yes,
and it wasn't no thugs like Donald Trump said. It was Army veterans. It was business owners. It was leaders in our community. We're not thugs. We're not going to go nowhere. A curfew is not going to silence us. They can't do it to us anymore. We are tired of taking it. We are here to stay. And like the brother said, we going to the promised land. Yes. Martin Luther King Jr. said, I may not be alive when we get there, but we're going. Yes. I'm standing around here telling my people I'm going to be alive when we get to the promised land. Because we going to build the promised land. Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. You've heard from our young people. We tried to talk to you. Now you're going to have to listen to them. Dr. King said the night before he died, he said to have an effective impact on racism, make it economically driven.
That's right.
He says if they don't treat you right, don't buy from them. If Coca-Cola don't hire black folks, don't buy Coca-Cola. Fort Worth has not been true to its African-American citizens in every category known to man. But there's something about the systemic racism in policing that's so poisonous that it grips the heart of the entire community. And this group, who got sick and tired of being sick and tired, did something no one in my generation or beyond has done. They went and shut down Sundance Square. They didn't stop at Sundance Square. Somebody said, we're going to take it over 7th Street and hit their crown and jewel.
Come on. Right.
But somebody in this city said, no, you will not.
Oh.
And decided to take the same tactics as Donald Trump and use lethal weapons on a non-aggressive people. We are calling for an independent investigation into Chief Krause and the Fort Worth Police Department for violating the civil rights of every person on that bridge who was hit with pepper spray, who was hit with a baton, who had fear for their lives when they turned on the new water hoses on our babies. We are not taking it anymore, and neither are they. They didn't cow down and scratch their heads or scratch their behind like many others have. They came back again, and they walked across the bridge. And when they walked across the bridge, they shut down the economy of 7th Street at 2:00 p.m. Keep the fire burning. Black Lives Matter. Don't let up. Keep the fire burning. You might not always see us, but we're praying for you. If they lock you up, call us, because we're going to shut down the jail until they let you out of that corona-infested jail down there that has no standards, and the sheriff is allowing our babies to go in there.
That's right.
We ain't taking this anymore. Playtime is over. And when they go to City Hall, shut it down. Thank y'all.